And that's what Billy Joel said, David. Music. There it is. You know, it is the beginning of a week. And, for some people, they think peace in the Middle East, and they think that everyone's going to drop their weapons and sing Kumbaya by a fire. But, that's what I would give you, a little esteem. But I don't think peace in the Middle East, whether it's from the Judeo-Christian perspective or biblical perspective, it's a false peace, because is it a disarmament? Is it an armistice? Is it an agreement not to attack? That's not peace, right? Peace would involve harmony. It would involve love. It would involve not having to secure a border. I mean, like Canada, United States, that's peace. That border's a joke. Mexico, I mean, the border's not a joke, but it's a joke. When you think about the Middle East and the borders between Israel and all of its Arab nations, I mean, I would think I'm entering and exiting San Quentin or the North Korean DNC, demilitarization zone, DMZ. But peace in the Middle East is a 1990 expression. It actually came about with, believe Clinton, the modern era, started saying peace in the Middle East when he had Yasser Arafat, who is head of the PLO, believe 3 times to the White House. And having the single sponsor of terrorism in the Middle East at that time, which was the PLO, peace in the Middle East, or was it just basically, let's try not to attack each other for a couple of years so we can look good? David, I know this weekend in the green room, you're saying you kept hearing peace, 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 peace. But is it peace? Is it an armistice? Is it a treaty to trade? Well, what is it, David?
Look,
but I actually forgot to do the introduction.
Yeah, you did. Go ahead and introduce it, because, you're good at that.
Welcome to the Rant Network. That's David. I'm Stuart. He's on one side. I'm on the other. And this is an unfiltered, unapologetic introduction to Geopolitics Today 101, Israel and the rest of the world. David, to you.
All right. Well, so much for that type of introduction. Look, ladies and gentlemen, when Anwar Sadat, after 1973 Yom Kippur War, the October 1973 war, if you were then around, and I was almost 4 years old, the idea of the Arab states led by Egypt, Syria, Jordan, also helped by Iraq and Lebanon at the time, was to eliminate Israel. Since 1947, November 29, 1947, after the UN declaration of the partition, the 2-state solution that was originally brought forward by the Western world, totally rejected by the Arabs, embraced by Jews. Since then, it was about, from 48 to 1973, it was all about, let's get rid of all of Israel. And it was a concerted effort. It was led by Egypt. And it was a realization by Anwar Sadat in the mid-70s. And there's a famous Walter Cronkite interview where Cronkite asks Sadat, so what do we got to do to start the peace process? And I'm paraphrasing the statement. He says, just invite me to Jerusalem. And that began a very interesting process that culminated on March 26, 1979, following the 1978 Camp David Accords, of a real peace treaty where discussions of disarmament, discussions of borders, discussions of land, resources, trade, you name it, it went into play. Now, Anwar Sadat, as a side note, knew he was a dead man. He was assassinated a few years later by his own guard, because how dare he make peace with Jews? Really important statement. All the while, if you look at what's going on in Jordan, Jordan, where 2/3 of the Hashemite kingdom is Palestinian. Unfortunately for King Hussein at the time, his father, had a relationship with Israel, very underground, very quiet. But with all the Palestinians in his land, he could not make peace with Israel. And although up even in 1967, King Hussein did attack Israel and whatever, the reality was Jordan never really, really wanted to go to war with Israel. At least the Hashemite kingdom did not want to do it. And I know I'm going through this history process on purpose. And forgive me, folks, I don't want to bore you on this, but the really important part was that Hussein couldn't sign a peace treaty with Israel until there was something to do with the Palestinians, which was the fake Oslo Accords. And I call it fake because the Palestinian leadership there had never any interest of following it, although Israel was constantly blamed for its demise. Arafat really was the one who screwed it over. And immediately on October 26, 1994, Yitzhak Rabin and King Hussein signed the famous accords with Bill Clinton, president. Why am I doing this? Because both Jordan and Egypt in that document talked about military, territory, disarmament, relationships, you name it. What Donald Trump did back in 2020 with the Abraham Accords did not include military. It wasn't all about wars, because there really aren't any wars between UAE and Sudan and all that, but it was about creating and forging relationships. And that has been very successful, especially between UAE and Israel over the last number of years. It isn't about a peace treaty. It's about a calmness, a quiet. And the word peace, you would say, oh, but it is peace. It isn't, because peace means demilitarizing. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in Egypt and Jordan today are movements that are trying to break this peace treaty with Israel, to try to attack Israel, which is being fought back by their governments. Okay? Despite all what you believe, Egypt and Israel, Jordan and Israel are holding on to a very tenuous peace treaty from a military perspective because of the hate, the indoctrination, the generations of radicalism that has been dumped into their heads. So here we are, we're July 7th, 2025.
Yep.
We're almost 2 years into the Gaza war. There's a whole thing now with Iran after 12 days. There's a whole thing where Donald Trump is pushing everybody. We've seen Syria fall apart. We've seen Hezbollah being dismantled. We've seen the Houthis still being stupid and trying to fire rockets into Israel. And the media and the politicians are all talking about Donald Trump is going to bring peace to the Middle East. No. Let's get over this reality that this is not about peace, okay? And peace, as Stuart just said it, is completely false to believe that this is exactly what's going to happen. You're not going to suddenly have Syria and Lebanon go, hell yeah, buddy, let's get together. There will be a relationship if that comes to that. And there are rumblings, by the way, that Syria and Lebanon want to sign the Abraham Accords. Notice they want to sign the Abraham Accords, not a peace treaty. Because there's a whole thing. This is not something you can flip a switch overnight. Now, there are a bunch of Irish freaking out right now, and a bunch of Spaniards are freaking out right now, and a bunch of Canadians freaking out right now. Why are we not talking about peace with the Palestinians? Why aren't we creating a two-state solution? Well, guess what, Stuart? You want to know why it can't happen? So over the weekend, a bunch of mullahs, religious leaders, made a public declaration that they want to represent the Palestinian people in a peace arrangement. They want to go ahead and with the Abraham Accords. They want to pursue. Well, guess who said no?
Who?
Palestinian Authority and Hamas. Both said no effing way. So when you say you want peace, you need two parties to get together, Stuart, to say...
You said you have to get two parties. And this is where this all gets sticky. And you just said it. These mullahs, these religious leaders of the Muslim faith, want to somehow project a peace agreement. However, factions that represent about 20 to 30% of the population there says, hell no, there is no peace.
They represent way more than they represent all of the Palestinians. The Palestinian Authority and Hamas both said no way. You do not represent the Palestinian people and refuse. It's like the whole thing. It's a refusal. Not oh no, we'll take it from here. Thank you. It's a flat no again. So this whole notion of bringing peace to the Middle East, Stuart, and I know I'm going on. I want to hear your side of it, but it's the nauseous the nauseation the nausea, pardon me, that I heard all weekend long of. Wow, look, the Saudi foreign minister comes to the White House secretly on Thursday. Don't say anything. Yeah, don't say anything. Everybody knows about it now. And then Netanyahu's there today. All of a sudden, it's like, we're bringing peace to the Middle East. Folks, there's no way it's peace. And not that we don't want. It's just, don't call it what it isn't, because you're going to get disappointed again. It's about, what did we use the word, Stuart? Détente? An armistice? Like, people, you got to know the difference here.
David, people know the difference. The media,
no, they don't. No, they don't.
People know the difference. Media spins the definition and then dilutes what the meaning is. The same way Egypt prevents Palestinians from entering its country, Jordan prevents Palestinians entering its country, because these are the parasites of the Middle East. And so none of these, well, as moderate as they can in the Arab world, these countries want nothing to do with these people, and they don't want these Bedouins in their villages because they seem to be cancerous throughout the Arab world. And these mullahs that want to project peace and want to project some sort of normalcy with Israel, well, it's great, but they don't represent the parties that want war, the parties that want to stone people. I saw a great meme over the weekend that was running on Instagram, maybe on TikTok as well, about this LGBTQIA girl going to Lebanon or going to some Arab country. And I don't want to say Lebanon, I don't really know where, and how she was getting stoned to death. The reality is the West's perception of what this part of the world is about is like the difference between Disneyland and New York City. I mean, they can't be polar opposites. And the media wants to portray this as being Disneyland. It's not. This is a different world with different rules for different people, and has been that way since the inception of this concept of a two-state, which goes back to the 18th century. The UN version of the two-state solution from 1947, which started the 1948 wars that continue to happen. Israel's been at war for 75 years. People don't get that. It's not peace. You're right. There are armistices. There are temporary pauses. But this is an all-out war that isn't going to go anywhere anytime soon by any president or any mullah, as far as I'm concerned.
Look, we're not. You cannot tell people who for generations have been brainwashed that you, me, the Christian world, all non-believers are the enemy. You can't undo that in one fell swoop. And it could take generations. Ladies and gentlemen, look at your universities. Your children are being indoctrinated and brainwashed right now. And how long do you think that's going to take to undo? And look, we're just, that is what is happening. And I know that people don't want to hear it. And I know the media wants to brush it under the rug. And I know that there are governments, and that's why I brought in Ireland, and I brought in Spain, and I brought in Canada, who have this great big, massive excitement over a Palestinian state, this desire that we need to push for that and crush Israel. I mean, it's just fascinating to hear these small, meaningless countries, and I'm sorry I'm calling Canada meaningless because you are. But it's funny because the more you go, and this is this, the morality, you could criticize Trump all you want, but he gets it. That the art of the deal here is, if you want to bring something this big to the Middle East, this whole thing of peace, you can't jump to the end. You have to start at the beginning. And the beginning was but the beginning was his Abraham Accords. That is the beginning. Then you go on.
But do you know why that's the beginning? And we're getting close to this, to wrapping this. Pay attention to what Trump's point with the Abraham Accords is all about: economic trade between countries. Because do you know what basically the philosophy of, we'll say, the West which used to be synonymous with the United States, with the rise of this radical wing of the Democratic Party, it's kind of getting skewed, was all about commerce and that you can buy your way to whatever you want and you could earn whatever you want. And it's called capitalism. And it's the West's belief, and I don't know if it's wrong, and I think there actually may be a lot of truth to this. If you can create this Western commerce in the Middle East where all people can lift themselves up, buy themselves the life that they dream of, that there may actually be a chance of peace. I don't think the Abraham Accords are peace. I think the efforts are to try and lead to a peace. And how do you get peace? And I think Donald Trump's view of peace is dinero, dinero, dinero.
You're 100% right. And I think that this is what...
Hang on a second. Can you say that again?
Ladies and gentlemen, Stuart is 100% right. So
Okay.
what I'm trying to, before Stuart wraps it up, here's the thing though, and that's what this whole notion of peace is the media really trying to set Donald Trump up for a failure again, where he's talking about, oh, you see, you only signed him on the Abraham Accords, it's not real peace. I don't know. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but the reality is you can't, even when you sign a so-called peace treaty, it isn't peace. The reason the Israeli army has to be as powerful as it is, and I know that we've heard over the weekend, over times, death to the IDF, and we've heard all these kinds of things, and it's vile and disgusting. But if the IDF isn't as strong as it is, there would be no Israel. And this is what many countries want, many politicians want, media wants. We get it. But Israel doesn't want it. And if you take Israel out of the equation in the Middle East, people, the disruption is absolutely extraordinary. So if you can't get peace, then the second best thing or the third best thing, as Stuart was saying, is start with the Abraham Accords. Create some sort of economic movement. Create something there to work to build towards. As Stuart is playing with his music track, which I can't figure out. It's all about, let's get to a point where now we can build rather than expect, 150%. It's not going to happen, Stuart. Sorry I ran on longer, but my friend, wrap it up, please.
I can wrap it up, but again, the news just keeps wanting to call humanitarian aid to Gaza. I'd say, David, as much as we talked about the false flag for peace, the same way we can talk about humanitarian aid and transit zones and the theft of this money, not by the Americans, not by the Israelis, not by the Germans or French or even those funny Irish people or silly Canadians. It is merely the group called Hamas that steals this aid. And that brings this rant to a close. I get the last word in, David. We truly appreciate you tuning in and sharing your time with us here. Support, engagement means the world. Your comments, positive, negative, heck, even hateful. We take it all. And let me tell you something. The last couple of broadcasts on that YouTube, wow, there's some electrifying, very, very interesting people. Anyways, every Monday, Wednesday, noon Eastern, David and I rattle it down live, unfiltered, unapologetic. Thank you once again for joining us. Until next time, stay calm.